Welcome to the Owning Your Sexual Self podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Main, awesome wife and dog mom for life. I'm a sex therapist turned sex coach, and I run a successful business selling relationship enhancement products. I absolutely love talking about all things sex. So you can expect this podcast to explore all things related to women's sexual health because that's what I'm here for. I'm here to help you discover and embrace what brings you pleasure so that you can own your sexual self. If that sounds good to you, then keep listening and let's fucking do this. So hi Irene, thank you so much for joining us today on the Owning Your Sexual Self podcast. I'm very excited that our paths have crossed for you to be here today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. And you are, I just discovered, in a completely different country than me, which is super interesting. And we do very similar work in working with women specifically and couples. So I would love for you to tell the listeners kind of how you fell into this world of sex, is how I like to refer to it as.
Yes, this world of sex. Well, I would have never imagined that I was doing this work.
Yeah.
I have an education in economics and philosophy and a master's degree in philosophy, and then I did marketing work in my first career. But what also happened in my own life was that I was married in my late 20s, and I ended up in a sexless marriage because I lost my libido. And it was a classic story. It was a perfect beginning to the relationship. We were very happy and passionate, and sex was great, and I wanted it several times a day. And then the relationship got more intense. We moved in together, we got married, and sex got more challenging. Sexual desire started to wane, and so did passion. And at some point, I also started to have painful sex. So lost lubrication, had no stretchability or pliability at all, and it started to hurt. Mm-hmm. And so it ended up that I had no desire for sex, and like I said, we ended up in a sexless marriage. And it was an incredibly painful experience, and it was a confusing one. I had nowhere to turn. I was getting conflicting messages from the medical field saying, actually, there's nothing wrong with your body. There's nothing at all wrong with you health-wise. And them saying, well, maybe it's something sexual. Maybe it's, you need to see a sex therapist. Maybe there's something wrong with you. To also getting messages, including from women doctors, that, well, it's okay for women to lose their libido in a long-term relationship. Mm-hmm. Sex is for the man. I was getting this just 15 years ago, still these kind of messages. Mm-hmm. So it was very confusing on that front. And it was also very confusing because, of course, I was doubting myself. I thought I was broken sexually because here I was with a man that I loved and that a man that I wanted to have sex with, meaning I wanted to want it, but I couldn't. And I was blaming myself, and I was also questioning our love. Well, maybe we're not meant to be together. Maybe there's something wrong with us. And that, of course, created a lot of distance between us, a lot of hurt feelings, a lot of shutting down and anger and everything in between, to the point where we couldn't really rescue the relationship. And so it ended. And that was an incredibly painful, really devastating experience that led me to shut down sexually completely for the following 5 years, where I thought I was asexual, where I thought I was just broken as a woman, that sex wasn't something that was accessible to me. But it was a fluke in the beginning of the relationship, what happened. Yeah. But there was still some hope underneath all of that, saying like, well, maybe I can have the relationship I want. Or maybe it was actually not so much hope as this little desire. Like, I want to have this. I want to experience this. I know this is part of my life experiences. And that led me to start working first with life coaches, but then seek out the help of a sex coach who helped me understand my own body, who helped me go on a path of discovery, both with myself and with partners. And that woke me up to this world of pleasure in my own body and understanding my own sexuality in a way that again, I couldn't given the resources or the lack of resources that I had before.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started feeling my body waking up, and when I started seeing the color in my face or the softness in my face that I had never seen before, there was a light bulb moment in me. And I remember exactly where it happened, exactly the street that I was walking on in that moment, where I was like, I want to do this work because I want every woman to feel that empowerment around knowing her body and tapping into this amazing pool of pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
That's not just nice because it feels good, but that's empowering and that's enlivening. And I know for myself, it makes me feel unstoppable,
Mm-hmm.
which led me to do crazy stuff like leave my corporate career and start a coaching practice and do this for the last 10 years and expand into couples coaching, which is really intense. Most people are like, no couples, but I love couples work and working with individual women. And so,
yeah.
Like I said, it made me feel unstoppable and led me to do really amazing things in life.
I love that. I mean, gosh, such a powerful story. And I feel like the people that have stories like this, where you are coming and you're doing this work from very real life experiences of your own, that can help people just connect with you so much more on a deeper level. And same thing with I said we do such similar work. So my practice is really around in the self-pleasure realm of everything that you just said, and going through my own personal experiences with that. And when you brought up that you felt so broken as a woman in that moment and throughout those years where you weren't feeling like you could connect with your partner, like you said, you were wanting to have sex, but then getting these answers that quite frankly are just bullshit and is like such a lack of resources, right? I have another friend that when you were saying that, her story, when she told her doctor that she was experiencing desire issues, the doctor's response was, well, don't you love him? And I'm just like, it's so sad to me that is, I mean, that's an often answer that people get when they bring up this topic. So I'm very excited to hear from you today. You've gone through this experience yourself. So sharing with others how this, quote unquote thing of a sexless marriage it can be a normal thing, but there's also a way for you to adjust to it and make it a new normal is what it sounded like when we were talking before this.
Absolutely. There's things that happen in the beginning of the relationship that really create false advertising, both for ourselves and for our partners, when it comes to women's libido and what it can look like in a relationship. In the beginning of the relationship, there's hormones that are taking us on a ride, sexual attraction hormones, the excitement of doing new things with a partner, hormones from, when you fall in love, all these things, they create this incredibly powerful cocktail that, like I said, take us on a ride. We are running on fumes. That excitement in the beginning where you can spend hours talking on the phone or spend a night together making love and then go to work and be energized. Like, how do you do that on no sleep? Well, we do that because these hormones are driving us, because this is programmed in us by evolution. We're supposed to hook up and make a baby and carry on our species. Mm-hmm. Everything in us is wired for that. Even though you may not choose to do that, but everything is wired in us. And in the beginning of the relationship, it looks like women's libido and men's libidos is more or less the same. She wants to have sex just as much as he does. She's available. She's more turned on and excited. And so, like I said, it can be actually false advertising, because that's not how it happens in a long-term relationship, precisely because those hormones fall away. Mm-hmm. They're there, like I said, to hook us up, to bring us together. And once they wane, we actually have to create sexual desire. And we have to create these contexts that allow for a woman's arousal to happen and for sexual desire to arise. And it doesn't happen spontaneously. Mm-hmm. But again, in the beginning it does. And the kind of sex that happens in the beginning is what I call friction sex, where the couple just can't keep their hands off each other. They want to be together. It's all about, body to body and all the touch and excitement. And this is a very passionate kind of sex. But because of the hormones, like I said, it has a shelf life. So it will be exciting the first couple of times, maybe the first couple of months, but then you start to see diminishing returns because the hormones are waning. And this type of sex will feel great to both, but women will start to also see diminishing returns for them in terms of pleasure. Because friction sex, in the beginning, we just want to do the same thing over and over because it felt so good. Let's just go for it. But over time, it gets boring. So a woman will start to want to see some variety. But friction sex, especially if it's in the beginning of a relationship, it's all about having a good time. And what I call this sex also is good weather sex. There's no room to actually start to speak your desires. So here's a situation where she's starting to notice, I want things differently. I have different needs, or I want things to go differently, but I don't want to ruin the mood and mention what I want. So she keeps back her voice. She doesn't say what she needs. And in friction sex, there's also, again, for the same reasons, no room to really share your emotions because it'll ruin the mood. Right? And I use quotes around that term because I hear that so much. I don't want to tell my partner that. It'll ruin the mood. It'll stop the moment. But the problem is if we're not asking for what we want, and if we're having not so pleasant experience, maybe an uncomfortable experience, we're really shortchanging ourselves. And we will see the passion wane and the excitement for sex wane. And in this type of sex, talking about your needs is scary. And that's what makes this type of sex have a short shelf life. And this is where women's libido starts to wane. But let's say this couple starts to fall in love. And they have a new set of hormones driving them. So they start to be under the spell of limerence hormones. So there's more dopamine and serotonin, like, wow, this partner really cares about me. They love me. I love them. I want to please them. And that's all amazing and beautiful and can create a new level of passion in the relationship. It can feel like a warm blanket and it can feel so rich. But what also starts to happen here is that when you start to fall in love with someone, you start to also attach to them. And on the flip side of attachment is the fear of abandonment and losing your partner. For some people, that fear looks like fear of abandonment. And for others, it looks like fear of failure and not showing up. And what do we do when we're scared? Is that we start to play it safe. And the same kind of pattern actually emerges. We don't ask for what we need. And we don't take risks to initiate or to really show up vulnerably. Even though this is now a much more vulnerable context, validation in the stage of what I call validation sex, validation is what rules your relationship. I want to know that my partner loves me and that they find me attractive and that they desire me. So I'm not going to take risks. I don't want to lose that. Again, I don't want to screw this up. But we have to address needs. We have to address desires. We have to address emotional things like disappointments. And again, they get held back. And couples here get stuck piling on the resentments and a sense of failure without an ability to address it. And they will see, again, the passion and the desire for each other drop. Or they'll see a dynamic where they get gridlock, where one person still wants sex and the other one is withdrawing. So you have the pursuer and the withdrawer, and they're chasing, or one is chasing the other and the other one is running away, and they get stuck in this gridlock. And so here, what gets created is this situation where they don't feel safe with each other anymore. And sex is starting to feel like either a chore, or it starts to feel like friction sex. You're just doing the motions. There's the physical piece, but you're not actually connecting. And you might be fighting, like I said, the pursuer-withdrawer dynamic. It might be happening.
Yeah.
And this is a place where a lot of couples will doubt their love for each other. They will doubt whether they should be together because look at them, they're fighting, or they've become roommates because this area has become so fraught with anxiety. They don't want to go here.
Yeah.
And here again, women's sexual desire suffers greatly because it doesn't feel safe anymore. There's no space for her to share. And plus there's this impetus to not share at all because she might lose even like whatever she has left of the relationship and the love.
Yeah.
And men here stop initiating. They stop being playful with women and stop taking risks to like whisk her off her feet to dance or take her on an exciting date. They start to play safe too. They start to walk on eggshells. And that furthers the dynamic of pulling them apart because we women, we need that. We need the man's attention and his kind of the masculine energy of taking us and treating us and taking us on an adventure.
Mm-hmm.
And this is especially important since I follow the terminology from Emily Nagoski of women having responsive sexual desire versus spontaneous, which is what most men have. And what is women's responsive sexual desire responding to? Well, it's all that, romance, you could say, like the how he takes initiative, how he treats her, what he does, what kind of attention he gives. Mm-hmm. Well, at this stage, he's too scared to put that in, and then she's not getting what she needs.
Yeah.
This is a place where so many women get caught up in feeling also broken, thinking like, well, like you said, like, if you love your husband, shouldn't you want to have desire for him? Well, if you're fighting constantly, and if there's demands put on you to have sex because you love him, that is not going to create desire for sex. Mm-hmm. It may be obligational, like I should want to, but it's not going to be genuine. And at this stage, this is where I see again a lot of couples, this is where I see a lot of women feeling really broken. Mm-hmm. And so just to wrap this up, so you have these two types that naturally have a shelf life. There's no room for speaking your needs. And again, it really specifically negatively affects women's libido. And for many couples, sex naturally ends. It either turns into just pure friction sex. Let's do it, get an orgasm, and we're good. Mm-hmm. Or it just disappears altogether. And couples think that this is the end of the relationship. They get here and they actually want to resuscitate the sex that they had, thinking like, well, that's how it was supposed to be. Again, because we get this false advertising in the beginning of the relationship. But I say that at this stage, it's important to let sex die because it needs to die. It's based on expectations, on biological motivations, on all the old patterns that we bring from past relationships. Mm-hmm. What's on the other side of this death is a birthing of a new type that's not driven by biological motivations, but that's not driven by biological motivations, but is driven by intention and by partnership, creating agreements and conversations about what our needs are and desires. It's based on vulnerability and openness about what's really happening for us emotionally. And it's very much a disciplined approach. It's not about waiting for sexual desire to come about out of thin air, but putting in place practices and infrastructures that are going to create that sexual desire consistently and also spontaneously. And that's what really is necessary for women's libido as well. That we need to take the elements that worked in the beginning and put them back in, but not wait for things to happen at a whim. It's things like putting practices of connecting verbally with each other every day. and having space to touch each other, both non-sexually, but then also sexually, without the goal of orgasm, but to just explore each other's bodies. And it's about a space to speak about our needs and desires and to explore them and experiment them. And to do that, like I said, in partnership. Because issues in women's libido in a long-term relationship are not her issues. They are partnership issues. Mm-hmm. They're about both people. Because sex is not something we do ourselves. Yeah. Sexual desire is not something that we just generate from within. We need each other. And so I approach this as a partnership issue. And that helps to set couples up for success for long term when they can approach it that way.
Yeah. Gosh, all of that was so great. And I agree with you on all of those levels. And the question that I have that has popped in my mind is, well, first to make the point that a lot of these things that we experience that we see as issues later in life or later in our couple can very often be avoided with talking about the things. Yet we get so wrapped up in the fear of bringing our needs up or even making those conversations happen around sex and desires and pleasure and all of that because we fear that rejection so much. And that could be on either end. And then in my head, I'm just thinking, but gosh, like at what cost to you is that? You know, now you're going to continue sitting in this relationship where you're not getting your needs met. You're not experiencing the pleasure that you desire for yourself. And you're going to continue going on to the point where you then get so frustrated, feel so defeated in your own relationship that you then shut down, your partner shuts down, and now where does that leave you, you know? And it's like, if we can just take the risk and put ourselves in those vulnerable moments to be able to have that conversation, so much more can happen, and the benefits of that can be seen for both people in the couple. So do you have any recommendations for, let's say for females specifically? I know females are the majority of my listeners. If somebody's listening to this and they're like, that's me right now. I'm in this early stage where I'm fearing to have this conversation of what I want from my partner or what I want from our sex life. How would you recommend that they bring this conversation up? Like, is there any sort of context or anything that you would offer them?
That's a really awesome question. And before I go into the particulars of answering that, I want to reinforce what you said about how we are afraid to speak up and we don't get our needs met. And death of sex and death of libido in a relationship is not about sex or libido. It's actually about not getting our needs met. Mm-hmm. And that is a big impetus, or I hope it becomes a big impetus for women to realize that yes, speaking up is the only way that we can fulfill our body's potential and realize our own dreams and realize our own desires for how sex should go. Mm-hmm. And a big piece to prepare women for this conversation is actually to assume that whether they're in a partnership with a man or with a woman, that if they're in a partnership, assume that your partner wants to give you what you want. Mm-hmm. So many of us, myself included, back in my marriage, I really did not assume that my partner wanted to. I assumed that I should be a certain way to please him. Why would he want to do something for me? And that was a self-worth issue. Mm-hmm. I didn't believe that I had a right to having my needs or desires met. And then I didn't believe that he would want to, because why? Why would anyone want to? And so this is a big mental shift on the inside that has to happen within us. And that's to assume the best intentions of our partners, that they want to please us and that they want to give us things. Mm-hmm. And then come at this conversation from that. You don't have to plead. You don't have to fight. You don't have to beg for your needs met. You don't need to manipulate. All you have to do is ask. The easiest way to bring this up is by bringing up that, hey, I would love to share with you what's been working for me and what I want more of. And I'd love for this to be an open conversation about me and you. So you want to bring your partner in and hear their perspectives as well. Framing this with the intention of let's explore, let's learn, let's see what there is. Now, if there has been a history of unmet needs and resentments and a lot of the patterns that I mentioned when I was talking about validation sex, you might need to reserve some space to share what hasn't been working as well. Mm-hmm. And it's always important to start with what is and assume the best of each other. I know you love me. I know you want me to have things. And I want to share with you some things that would be helpful for me that haven't been working so far, but I want to make them better. And for some women, it is really difficult because they don't know what they want. And this is so much of the work that I do when I work individually with women. So I work with single women, and then I work with married women as part of couples coaching. And then I also have an online program where I take women through a journey of understanding what they want and need. And that's okay not to know. It's okay to say, hey, I don't know, but I need your help to find out. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. And have that journey because, you might not know. And that's okay.
Yeah. And it's a awesome journey to take with yourself to figure those things out. Definitely.
It is. And it opens doors to things we had no idea even existed, mm-hmm. At least in my own experience. It's like, wow, I couldn't have dreamed this up. But when you take that curiosity stance going into it, yes, prepare to be wowed.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, great. This has been such an amazing conversation today, and thank you so much for sharing all this insight. And I think for people that are listening, I know that this conversation is going to normalize, yet again, as most of my episodes are set up to do, just normalize the things that we face as women and women that are experiencing struggles around desire. They're experiencing a lack of connection in their relationships. I mean, all of this is going to tie in with what we spoke about today with having that courage to share what you want within the relationship. And I love how you said to go in with that open mind and assuming that our partner is going to be receptive of hearing what we want in the relationship. I think so often we go in with like, oh, this is going to turn into a fight or an argument. And then we might even though we prepared so much on how to make this a positive conversation, we then feel, defensive, or we immediately go into defense mode, or you don't do this type mode is like the best way to refer to it as, I believe.
Yes. And what also happens when we don't believe that we have a right to ask for what we need or that our partners want to give us to us, what we do is we only say 50% of what we want. So we shy away from asking for the real thing. We bring it down, we water it down to make sure that, we get a yes. But the problem is that 50% of what we want is only going to give us 50% of satisfaction. And the other 50 is going to be resentment. And so it behooves us to actually ask for 100% of what we want. You can negotiate with your partner and see what the final solution looks like, but start with 100%. Mm-hmm. Start with really what you want. And like I said, assume that your partner wants to give it to you, and assume that it's okay, that you are worth asking for what you need and to have your needs met. I call this filling your cup, and then coming into a relationship from a full cup and giving in sex and pleasure and intimacy from your full cup. This is incredibly important. And to tie everything up, this last type of sex that I talked about is what I call connection sex. And that's where couples in a long-term relationship can create an infrastructure that supports a woman's libido and having her fill her cup.
Yeah. And in your experience in working with people, do you see that when they can then master this connective sex, that that's something that can withstand for a long period of time?
Absolutely. The way I teach it, it's not just a way of having sex, it's a way of doing life that's built around needs, understanding that having your needs met is fundamental. They're the essential blocks, the essential nutrients of who we are. And it's based on communication and vulnerability and a disciplined approach to intimacy, not just, like I said, waiting for it to emerge out of thin air or out of exciting date nights, but creating it, having time with each other every day, having vulnerable conversations, exploring and having fun, all these things. That's what sets couples up for success long term. And it sets them up to deal with all different things that show up through life: childbirth, child rearing, menopause, age, retirement, career changes, moves. When you can work through any problem with each other in a vulnerable way, when you know how to repair, when you know how to be agile and move with challenges, you can deal with everything. And that's what I see with my couples. It builds resilience, which is why I say that connection sex is not just about sex, it's about a way of life.
Mm-hmm. Gosh, I love that. And that just ties in when I hear from other people that, sex is not a big deal within a relationship, but that is the most vulnerable thing that you're likely doing within your relationship. And so that still ties in with this, is like, if you can master that, if you can have the vulnerable conversations during this, that sets you up for, like you said, having these vulnerable conversations throughout all of life, which I love, and I adore that so much. So thank you.
Absolutely. And, that was one of the things that I saw in my own life when I started working with a sex coach way back when. I was still in my corporate career, and I was learning in my private life how to ask for what I want in sex, how to make adjustments, how to tell my partners what I wanted. And then all of a sudden, I had this courage to go up to my boss during annual reviews and ask for a raise and ask for a promotion. And I was the only person to get it out of a team of 40. And I was like, wait, I'm doing this? Mm-hmm. Where am I getting the guts to do this? But exactly like you said, learning how to talk about what I need in a sexual context trained me to be able to address anything. It gave me the guts to do it.
Yeah, it's liberating. I love it.
Exactly, and empowering.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Very awesome. So if people are wanting to contact you after this episode, how do you prefer that they find you? And would you like to share any work that you're open to having them contact you about right now?
Great. So my website is irenefehr.com, and you'll find lots of different resources on the website, videos, articles, lots of pieces that I've written for the Huffington Post or other publications, other podcasts that I've spoken on. What I also have is a 3-video online training, a free training for women, specifically called How to Want to Have Sex Again. And I go through 4 very damaging myths that women fall prey to that destroy our intimacy, some of which I covered today. And I help women see a path to sexual desire that's flowing, but also a different way of relating to themselves and their pleasure. And of course, how to do sex differently with a partner, how to ask for what they need and figure out what they need too. Mm-hmm. So it's a very powerful 3-video training, and that's on the website.
Perfect. Well, thank you again so much. This has been, again, just a joy talking with you today, and I appreciate the work that you're doing. There needs to be more of us out there that are advocating and helping women navigate through these things that we experience through life and make them as most enjoyable and pleasurable as possible.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for all the work that you do as well. Like you said, we need more people educating and enlightening others about what's possible. Because a lot is possible.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you loved it, be sure to subscribe so you never miss a thing. And if you loved it so fucking much, be sure to leave a 5-star review. I'll see you next week, and until then, keep owning your sexual self.